Hey everyone, Colbert here. Welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video, guys. The patch 2.2 highlights have been released and it's available to everyone. It's the first time we didn't get any of this beforehand. Me and all the other content creators, we didn't get any information beforehand. And yeah, it's available to everyone. You might have already seen some videos on it, so I'm gonna go over the whole thing, the whole post, and give you my opinions on it. There is a couple of buffs in there, a couple of nerfs, but overall in terms of the rebalancing patch, it is disappointing. I expected way more for all the hype that they made. Maybe we as a community overhyped it ourselves, thinking, okay, we had Draco, he got buffed and he became amazing. Then we also had Mashalt, he got buffed and he became amazing. We expected this to be the patch that this similar buffs would occur. Like 37 champions, 40 champions got rebalanced. So we expected a couple of those to be, you know, that kind of buff, that kind of change. But this isn't the case, and actually some of them got a pretty big nerf, and I'm not talking about Rotos or Sifi. So let's go over the whole post. The artifact forge is as expected, as you guys saw in the video, or just from the pictures that were released the last couple of days. The artifact forge will be able to make just a few items, and based on our farming of classic arena battles, faction wars, and then from you know, just tournament farming, we're gonna get, you know, all the materials to farm, you know, the crafting materials. So it's gonna be rare, epic, and legendary, and there's gonna be one that's only legendaries, core hammer it's called, and this one will be available only through tournaments, so you're gonna have to fight in the tournaments to get this. It's very specific, so it seems there'll be a lot of competition. I hope it's not a reward for getting, you know, the top 5 position, but instead a reward for just fighting in a tournament. So I hope that's the case. And there's gonna be a cap of 10,000. I mean, that's fine. Nobody is gonna have 10,000 sitting at any time and not use them to actually craft items. So yeah, the sets that will be able to be crafted are nothing crazy, so I'll go over them once we have them actually in game. You know, the Swift parry set I think is the best one out of all 4. The other 2 maybe are good for newer players who are looking for, you know, accuracy and speed in one kind of set. Maybe that's good for free-to-play accounts and much newer accounts instead of endgame accounts. Endgame accounts will only be going for Swift parry, in my opinion. So let's skip all this. Let's go over the advanced quest very quickly. It's gonna be almost 1 legendary book every single month. We're gonna have this quest every single day. You can do them, for example, do clan boss, do faction wars, and you're gonna get many different rewards. I think it's a great way for new players and free-to-play players to actually get extra rewards for actually playing the game. They'll do stuff that they already are doing and get rewards for it, which is great. I think it's a great stepping up in terms of helping free-to-play players actually compete with other players. But always in these kind of games, guys, paying players will have an advantage, even if it doesn't seem so, even if the company tries to advertise otherwise. Always paying players will have the upper hand, and if it's not paying players, it's gonna be players who spend the most time, and time is money. Anyway, champion balance, guys. Let's go over champion balance. It says red color signifies a nerf, while green color shows a buff. So very quickly, let me maybe okay, we zoomed in a bit. So Rotos, the Lost Groom, overall, guys, he got nerfed, and it's a big nerf for him at least. So his A1, 25% chance of granting an extra turn, so that got decreased. I think it's an okay change for him because he would be getting excessive turns. And then we go over his A2, Vitality Plunder, damage slightly decreased. I don't know what slightly means, but yeah, he's gonna be doing way less damage. Attacks one enemy will ignore 60% of the target's defense. This is A3. From 75, this goes to 60%, so 15% defense lost there. But also, this is very important, guys. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. This champion has max HP from the Vitality Plunder skill. So if you have not used your A2 on a target and gained some max HP, not on that specific target, but overall, if you haven't got your max HP maxed out, then Rotos will not be block reviving when he kills with that A3. This is a good change, but overall, yeah, he'll still get the extra turn. So that's gonna proc. Maybe Relentless will proc. He'll still be good, but overall his damage will be dropped, and his block revive will be removed until you get that A2 going. Personally, I don't think I had an A2 going for so long that it maxed out, because usually people already run counters for rotos, so he wasn't that big of a deal. But sometimes, yeah, he would turn a whole fight just by himself. It was 4v1 and then suddenly the enemy won. So it happened to me, so it might have happened to you. So next up, guys, is Siphi, the Lost Bride. So she will fill the turn meter by 10% now. I think it was 15% before. So a nice little nerf for Siphi, and the cooldown got increased to 6 turns. So yeah, it's gonna help for big longer lasting battles, and the same thing with other champions down the list from what I saw. So her healing will also be reduced to 10% of their max HP to each ally at the start of their turn. It's a good nerf, because she was overall a very good support, and all the buffs that she was providing her allies, and also the very high speed that you can get as Siphi 2, accompanied with great heals, it made her just a top support. Her and rotos was just a nightmare to fight. So this is so weird. Arbiter, there's a bug fix with Arbiter, so apparently she was at sometimes buffing the team with 30% turn meter instead of 20%. So that's weird. Next up is gonna be Duchess Lily 2, guys. Duchess Lily 2 Shroud of Souls. This is 5 turns cooldown normally, but they increase it to 6 turns. This is very bad for PvE players who actually use Duchess for some clan boss teams. Some clan boss teams really require Duchess to have that at 5 turns and then reduce it by a book to 4 turns, so you can actually rotate through that skill way more often. Duchess Lily 2s in PvE are gonna have so much more trouble now. You're gonna need to put maybe a Painkeeper in there in the clan boss team to make it actually worth it. So I think they shouldn't have changed it. I think they did increase the cooldown just to help, you know, those prolonged fights, so she wouldn't be too overpowered and just rotating through that A2 all the time. But it does affect PvE. Maybe if they change something for PvE instead, I don't think they have an answer for that. So that was a big nerf for Duchess, I think, for PvE. Madame Series is next up. This isn't such a huge nerf, and in my opinion, Madame Series will still be used. It's just that they reduced the duration of the debuffs that she applies to 2 turns instead of 3. So again, even if you think this is a huge nerf, it's not really. Her whole kit, her whole, you know, overpowered state is because she removes all buffs from all enemies, because she's even better than legendaries at this, and then she also applies debuffs. That's what makes her so great, and that's what they didn't address with this. She's still gonna be great, but again, I think they try to reduce her effect in much longer fights. But if fights go for 1 turn, her effect is still the same. So she'll be removing the buffs, applying debuffs, and then your neutral will go. It doesn't change anything for you guys. So Coronar, another champion that I do have recently, I got him. So Flourish of Slaughter attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of decreasing each target's turn meter by 5%. So this went down from 10 to 5%. Overall, I think this is okay. I don't think it was too much at 10%, but of course I didn't play with my Coronar too much. I think this change was overall made for PvE content, because I think this would have been overpowered for the Doom Tower that's coming in 3 months. So overall, this is an okay nerf, I guess. If he was too overpowered, I think this is an okay nerf. I didn't play too much with my Coronar. I didn't see too many Coronars in Arena, in Classic Arena. In 3v3, you can find more champions in there. There's more diversity, but in Classic Arena, there's more of the same. So Blind Seer, she got a buff. We're getting to the buff list now. So Blind Seer, she got a relatively good buff. So so her self-sacrifice revives all dead allies to 35% HP, and this has gone to 6 turns cooldown. Overall, I think that's a good buff. Always to have a way to revive allies by a decreased cooldown. It makes her great. I know with some books this goes even less duration. So let's go to Warlords Orcish Rituals. It says cooldown to 5. I think this is not a buff, though. I'm not sure what the cooldown was for Orcish Rituals. So Orcish Rituals is actually a buff. It went down to 5 turns. That's great. It was 6 turns, and now it went down to 5 turns. And with another book, with some books, it goes to 4 turns. It's overall great. What it is great though is this thing here, guys, protection of gods, places a block debuffs buff on all allies for 1 turn. So he places the block debuffs buff first. It helps him against Tormin. Before this, the shield was first and then the block debuffs, which made him actually get frozen, and then apply the block debuffs, which was like, okay, what are you doing, Plarium? This should be the other way around, and this should actually be for all champions. Just put the block debuffs first. That's the reason we try to get this, and that's how blind tier was changed as well. So her shield buff is not first, her block debuffs buff was first instead. And then let's go over to Traxa. Attacks one enemy, 75% chance of placing a weaken. That's cool. That's cool for clan boss for sure. Has a 75% chance of removing 2 random buffs from the target. Grants an extra turn. Amazing. I think just getting buff removal on another champion is always great. You know, expand that you know, variety of champions that do remove buffs. And this will go for Gurgo as well. So Bone Chiller, it used to be removes 1 random buffs from all enemies, but now he actually removes 2 buffs. So I think he's great. He's gonna have a much better position in my team, I think, and also his base speed goes up. So overall, I do have Gurgo and I'm happy with this change. So cooldown down to 5, and with the book I think this goes to 4, and then his base speed got up. So next up, we're gonna start seeing some of the epics and then some legendaries. So Alika, Disorient attacks all enemies, 75% chance of increasing the cooldowns of all enemy skills by 1 turn. Cooldown to 4. Yeah, okay, this is great, but it's I mean, if you don't have something like that increases the cooldowns, then I guess you may use Alika for PvP and she can be utilized there. It's not a bad buff, but again, nothing too crazy. Next up, it's Elder Skarg. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Place an extra hit each buff or debuff on the target. Oh, nice. Can place up to 3 extra hits, so he can actually hit for 6 hits overall. Place an HP burn debuff for 2 turns and a true fear debuff for 1 turn if this attack places all 3 extra hits. Steals all the buffs from the target after the attack. Wow, this is so good. This is so good, but of course, I mean, stealing the buffs from a target, it's always great, especially those targets that have a ton of buffs. This can be like a Rotos killer for sure, if you can manage to do all 6 hits and then steal the buffs also. But it depends, if the attack actually kills him, then it won't be the case. Next up is Elder's Clarion. Plays a 60% increased defense buff on this champion for 3 turns. Plays a fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. A true fear debuff for 1 turn on targets under block damage buff. Plays a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns on targets under shield buffs. These debuffs cannot be resisted. Also plays a provoke debuff on legendary champions for 1 turn. Oh, that's so weird. Also plays a provoke debuff on legendary champions for 1 turn. It's the first time I see this kind of skill effect. I don't think there's other skills in the game that do have this effect in the description. So it does this only if the champion is rare, only if the champion is epic. I think this is the first time I see it. If that's not the case, please leave it down in the comments, guys. So Kingslayer receives 15% less damage from legendary champions. Yeah, okay, this is the same as the one before, but it's so weird. It's so weird to have this. Inflicts damage equal to this champion's attack when attacked by legendary champions. This is like such a weird detail to have. Next up is Cadraphone, the one I was excited about because currently Cadraphone is like a bottom category champion. He was maybe only useful when you had a Duchess, but we saw what happened to Duchess. So Cadraphone from the Shadows, that's his passive. Damage increased by 40% while attacking under a Veil or Perfect Veil buff. I think this was already the case, right? Let's see, Demon Spawn, Cadraphone. Yeah, this was already the case. 40%, receives 40% less damage while under Veil or Perfect Veil buff. This is crazy good. This is crazy good because he already receives a reduction of damage dealt on him with the Perfect or Veil, and then that's an additional 40%. That's an insane damage mitigation. I would like to see some clan boss teams with him. Maybe we'll see how that does work. Also boost this champion's turn meter by 15% each time this champion receives damage under a Veil or Perfect Veil buff. Okay, so Then if you put him in a clan boss, you'll actually also have to think of when he gets hit by that AoE from the boss. When he gets hit from that AoE from the boss, he'll also gain 15% turn meter because of the veil or perfect veil buff that he will have. Does not work if this champion is the only alive ally on the team. Okay, that makes sense. Active effect, so I'm not sure what active effect means. Place a perfect veil on this champion for 1 turn each time an enemy's turn meter is filled. Okay, this buff cannot be removed. So good. This is so good because he'll be protected immediately at the start of a fight. Once, you know, the enemy arbiter goes, or Lysandra, or, you know, those kind of champions, he'll be protected by himself. So you don't even need a Duchess now to protect him. This is so good. This is so good. I like it. I like it. It's a nice buff. You can have, you know, a very squishy. It means he can be killed very easily. Cadraphone there to bring in some pain on the enemies. I'll definitely max out my Cadraphone and see how that works. Attacks one enemy, place an extra hit if the target is under any buff. That's also good. Under any buff. This used to be under attack buff. So under attack buff, it really limited his case of getting that extra hit, but now it makes it much better. So place a perfect veil buff, 50% increase attack buff, a 30% increase speed, and a 30% increase critical damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. I would have loved to see On the Hunt also give him an extra turn so he can apply this, also have that perfect veil, and then go with his attack. So he would gain that 30% increased critical damage and bring in some huge damage on the enemies. Overall, I'll do max my Cadraphone and see how that works out. So Tormin the Cold guys got a nerf. I'll explain how Tormin works now. So has a 20% chance of placing a freeze debuff on the enemy each time they receive a buff or have the turn meter filled. Okay, let's go over and see Tormin, and I'll explain to you why this is like a weird change that they did on Tormin. So currently it says 15% chance, so they actually increased it to 20%. So 5% increased there, guys. Wait though. So 5% increased, it's a buff there, but the 20% chance applies up to twice per enemy turn, once for buffs and once for turn meter fills. So he won't be multiple times freezing the enemies. That's good in cases where an enemy receives multiple of these effects at the same time. So an arbiter boosting would actually give 1 buff and also turn meter fill, so he has that chance 2 times. So it's actually better against arbiters, but it's not better against other targets that do apply multiple buffs. So multiple buffs, you only have that chance 1 time, so it's 20% 1 time. But if he is against just an arbiter or a Lysandra, it's just an increased chance for him, and that's a buff against those targets. So does not work with effects from artifacts, effects, turn meter, filling effects from masteries, healing, or those buffs or effects that take place at the start of a round. Okay, that's cool. Revives the champion to 100% HP when killed and places a freeze debuff on this champion for 1 turn. Okay, this was his active effect already. I don't know why they included it. I guess they did want to just include it there. That's fine. So Bistofus was another champion I hoped would get a significant buff, but this wasn't really the case. So additional 35% chance to place a True Fear. Nothing crazy, guys, in my opinion. So his AoE attacks all enemies. 50% chance of placing decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Also has a 50% chance of placing a block cooldown skills debuff for 2 turns. Again, nothing crazy unless they also change his multipliers, and this does significantly more damage. So it does way more damage and then applies the 2 debuffs to basically block the enemies out and let his other team members do some huge hits. So let's look at some epics, guys. So Azure, he has lunge, attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 30% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. This chance increases to 100% if the target has an increased speed buff. Okay, that's okay. Attacks one enemy, plays an extra hit if the target has a stun debuff. Okay, you stun them first with this, and then you go with this, I guess. The extra hit is always critical. Steals 50% of the target's turn meter if they're not under a stun debuff. Okay, that's good for stealing the turn meter. Maybe you can use him on bosses to actually try and reduce their turn meter, but there's uncommons Plarium that do have this already, and it doesn't need a two line description to actually do it. So Elfguard has this, 50% reduction of perimeter on her A2. Armiger, Plarium, 30% reduction on his A1. Anyway, don't nerf Armiger. Bushi is up next. Deadly Edge attacks one enemy. This attack is always critical. Plays a 30% increased critical rate buff and a 15% increased speed buff on this champion for 3 turns. Nothing crazy here. None of these epic changes actually brought my attention, but let's go over them. Attacks one enemy. For Hexia, attacks one enemy, has a 40% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff. This chance increases by 20% for each debuff placed on this champion. Whatever. And then her Soul Reap, damage increased by 7.5% for each debuff on this champion. Stacks up to 30%. I guess this can be okay. Maybe you use Gurp Tuck with her. And then let's go for Spirit Harvest. Attacks one enemy. The heal increased by 10% for each debuff on this champion. Whatever. Pitiless one. Split Arrow attacks one enemy 2 times. Each critical hit fills this champion's perimeter by 5%. Damage slightly increased. Damage slightly increased. That means nothing for us unless we actually have these champions maxed out. We won't know the difference there, and I can't tell you what slightly increased means. Is it 5%? Is it 50? We don't know. Slightly means low, but we don't know how low. Bonekeeper attacks one enemy. This attack deals 50% extra critical damage. That's nice. That's nice that they added a bit more. And Killing Haze attacks one enemy, plays an extra hit if the attack is critical. Yeah, fills the perimeter of all allies by 15% if this attack kills an enemy. Oh, this is cool. This is cool. Okay. So maybe you kill some targets, you gain a ton of perimeter to your team. I don't know. I don't know about this. Maybe for Spider. Is there a max perimeter boost here? So maybe for Spider, if you bring down the Spiderlings low and you kill them with Bonekeeper, then everyone will basically get another turn. This looks really cool, but of course the Spiderlings will always be, you know, reviving at a 2 at a time every time somebody takes a turn. So basically all of them will be revived because of everyone getting an extra turn. So yeah, never mind that for Spider. Missionary, Crushing, Holbert, skills from Champion's HP. Okay, they nerfed him. Skills from Champion HP. Skills from Champion HP. Okay, I don't know how the scaling changed here and how important of a difference it makes to Missionary, but I'm not gonna test it out. So if you guys want to max Missionary out, have some fun there. So Jotun, Brute Strength, again, they made him an HP scaling champion. They decreased the cooldown to 5 and damage increased by 50% if the target is under an HP burn debuff. Okay, nothing crazy. Teshada, I do have Teshada, but I'm not gonna max her out. I've got my barbarians are already fine and farming. Faction Wars 21. The chance of placing a weakened debuff increased to 100% on critical hits. That's nice. That's nice actually. Just to apply that weaken, and Spirit Appeasement goes to 3 turns cooldown. Maeve, another champion that I do have. Stupefy attacks one enemy, 60% chance of placing a sleep debuff. And then Slowbird Knocker attacks one enemy, places a stun debuff for 1 turn. Overall, these changes on epics just seem like a way for you to possibly use them for Faction Wars, but nothing too crazy. They won't replace any legendary in the game anywhere. So Suwai, this hit deals 80% of the damage inflicted from the first hit. Nothing crazy here. And then Taurus, I think Taurus got a nice little buff here. So attacks one enemy, 75% chance of placing a weaken. But look at this, guys. This champion receives damage on himself. He applies an unkillable. He has an 80% chance of placing 5% poison debuffs on all enemies for 2 turns. That's fantastic, guys. Oh, it's gonna make those runs, those speed runs much faster, especially with Xavia there just destroying the poisons. He's also gonna be great for the clan boss. So 4 poisons is a lot, guys. 4 poisons is a lot. It's like how much Draco is putting on them. So next up, Snorting Thag attacks one enemy, steals 2 random buffs from the target. Okay, that's cool. And then his Dire Defense has the 30% chance of stealing 1 random buff from the attacker when hit. Occurs once per hit. So the stealing of buffs counterattacks the attacker if they have no active buffs. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. So it's just he'll be stealing a random buff. That's great. So row 1, she's attacks one enemy, 60% chance of placing 100% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns. Scourge attacks 3 times at random. Each hit has a 40% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Blade Surge, a 4-turn cooldown skill, upgrades improved chance of placing poison to 75%. Overall, row 1 is going to be just a better poisoner with this, and just additional chance to poison to stun is also good again for faction wars probably. Next up is Hope. I did have hope for her to get a good buff, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Attacks one enemy, 30% chance of placing a block buffs debuff. Increase the duration of buffs on all allies by 1 turn. Place a shield buff equal to 25% of the champion's HP on all allies for 2 turns. And Holy Storm goes to 4 turns cooldown. Okay. Nothing crazy here. Again, I don't think this is a significant buff on her. Yeah, the 25% is not going to be worth it. I mean, it won't ever be the same as, you know, Miscreated Monster Shield. So Canoness is up next. Lead the charge, attacks one enemy, 50% chance of placing a 50% increased attack buff on a random ally for 2 turns. That's okay. And then a leech debuff additionally on her other skill. Nothing crazy. So no rogue has a nice change, I think, guys. So attacks one enemy, 40% chance of placing a block cooldown skills. Immune to stun, freeze, and sleep debuffs. Decreases the damage taken by all allies that are under 1 or more buffs by 15%. A great damage mitigation there, 15%. Decreases the damage taken by all allies that are under no active buffs by 25%. Does this mean that maybe some teams will come out with no buffs? I don't think so. It's very hard to have a no buff team just because of how strong some buffs are in the clan boss. So a 10% damage mitigation is not that significant in, for example, losing that defense up or losing that ally protect. So I don't think that's going to make that much difference. Astrolith is another champion I had huge hopes for. She's one of the 3 champions in game that applies bombs, legendary champions. So attacks one enemy, places 2 bomb debuffs that detonate after 1 turn. This debuff cannot be resisted. I always like this kind of skills, but the bombs, unless she had different multipliers for her bombs, it's not gonna be so amazing. I guess you can use this to apply bombs maybe on a Rotos and she can kill a Rotos, but there's so many Rotos killers out there that use the bombs. Bombs are great because they don't care about defense, but they do care about how much attack you have, and you're gonna have, you know, a very squishy Astrolith trying to kill someone with one single skill that she has. Nothing crazy. So Hawkhorn is another champion I do have. Removes all debuffs from all allies, then places a block debuffs buff on all allies for 2 turns. So good because he basically cleanses and then applies the block debuffs. So he's basically protecting you from that nasty Tormin. Heals all allies by 15% of this champion's HP. Heals each ally by an extra 10% of this champion's max HP for each debuff removed from them. And then Blood Offering sacrifices HP equal to 25% of this champion's max HP. Then attacks all enemies. Damage inflicted is equal to 50% of this champion's max HP. This attack is always a normal hit. I don't know why they put this in. The HP sacrifice will happen even if it kills this champion. Let it crit, man. Let us have, you know, that sacrificial character, Skinwalker. Just let it crit. Make us just put a ton of max HP gear on him, critical rate, critical damage, and let us see huge numbers with that skill and let him die after that. It would be so amazing to have in the arena. Next up is Bellanor, guys. Attacks one enemy, then places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns, basically protecting him from some damage. Overkill attacks one enemy, will attack the enemy with the lowest HP with any surplus damage if this attack kills an enemy. So Overkill currently, guys, let's go over very quickly and see it. We're not gonna go over all champions with this. So where's Overkill? So it says will heal this champion equal to any surplus damage if the target is killed. So they actually changed it out and made it how Dracomorph is. So I kind of like the change on Overkill. It makes sense. If you were having some fun with Dracomorph, then Bellanor will also cause you to have some fun with those huge attacks. This does not say cannot crit, so he can actually crit with this. So it might be a cool way for you to basically kill 2 enemies with 1 hit with Overkill. And next up is Tactical Partner. Activates the champion's Sword Leader skill. Also activates Xavia's Poison Rain skill when Xavia is on the same team. So champion's Sword Leader skill is his A1. So he'll actually attack with his A1 if he has used his A4, and that's only when Xavia's in there. So he will attack 1 enemy, place a poison, place all those debuffs, and then also attack with his A1, apply critical rate buff on everyone, and then Xavia, guys, where's Xavia? Xavia will go with her, where is it? Her Poison Rain skill. Where is Poison Rain? Poison Rain is this, attacks all enemies 2 times. Each hit has a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. So it's going to be a great way to just fill a target with debuffs just by using that A4 from Bellanor. It's an overall good change. I don't see how some people said that this was a nerf for Bellanor. You guys need to comment down below and say if that's indeed a nerf. So next up is Abyss. I heard good words about this. Attacks all enemies, 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased debuff for 2 turns. That's cool. That's an AoE little attack with a 75% chance of placing, you know, the decreased defense. And then Divine Wrath attacks all enemies, places sleep debuff on this champion for 1 turn, deals an extra 30% critical damage if the target's attack is highest. So that's weird. Ignores 30% of the target's defense if the target's defense. It's gonna be weird. It's a weird skill. It's a weird skill to say the least. So I don't know when a target will have higher attack than Abyss, but I guess it's fine when you're trying to attack high nukers. Maybe Rotos with very high attack. Maybe what's his name? Blood Twin has usually very high attack, and the ignore defense is also great. So Gerptug is another champion I wanted him to fix. Removes all debuffs except poison debuffs from an ally. Then heals them by 30% of their max HP and places shield buff on the target equal to 20% of their max HP. So he does not remove the poison debuff, so he keeps that benefit on them. Okay, he keeps the benefit of the poison, you know, that additional damage, and then places 2.5% poison debuffs on all allies for 3 turns. Okay, this was doing huge damage on your allies before, so this is a nice change. But again, they should have maybe given him something else that makes him a little bit greater. I don't know. I'll test him out again to see how much difference does that make. So it's 7.5% less damage each turn because of the poisons, and it's still gonna do the same effect on you. So Dracomorph, the one that everyone was scared about, is he gonna get nerfed hugely? Not really, guys. So surplus damage cannot be critical. That's the only change on that. So you won't be seeing those huge numbers of basically Draco one-shotting the Ice Golem boss for 1.5 million damage. I would like to have a Dracomorph way before this change, but I won't have the joy of that, it seems. So what can you say, guys? I still hope I get a Dracomorph just because of how good he is on the clan boss, because of his A1. His A1 is so good, his A2 is so good, his A3 is so good. He's just a fantastic champion overall. Next up is Drexstar, the champion that I wanted to see a good buff because he's now available to everyone through that daily shard that we get. So it's still going to take me until end of November to get him, but that's fine. Attacks all enemies, 50% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn. This chance increases to 100% if the target is under an HP burn debuff. Okay. So also plays a 50% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns if the provoke debuff is placed. So hopefully you have the HP burns on them already, and then you try to do your attack, so you provoke and also decrease attack. This champion's resistance increased by 10 for every enemy under HP burn debuff, stacks up to 50. Oh, why did you do this? Just don't don't let this. Let him get as much resistance as he can so he can tank that spider. Be the best tank in the spider. Apply the HP burns when he gets attacked. Why did you have to limit this? I don't like this. I wish they instead change this to 100% chance when he gets hit. And maybe leave this to stacks at 50. Whatever. And then miscellaneous, an annoying bug that removed accessory ranks from accessory chest preview in the bazaar will be fixed. The release of long-awaited Doom Tower draws near, and a special teaser will be added to the game. Once it's there, tap on the image to see more detailed explanation of this upcoming feature and its mechanics. So yeah, that's cool. All right, that's cool. So guys, overall, my thoughts on all these changes. Wow, this is a huge video. Overall, guys, my thoughts on these changes is, as I said in the beginning, nothing too crazy. Overall, nothing too crazy overall. Some champions got way more changes than others. Roto's got the most nerfs out of all, in my opinion. Some changes were good in terms of applying the block debuff buff first and then everything else. Duchess basically got nerfed. Bellanor had some nice changes in there. Drexstar was not as we expected. He's not going to be the most amazing champion to have. The epics overall are not amazing. There's no change in there that makes me say, okay, that's a top tier epic and it will compete with Madame Series. No, none of them seems to be the case, maybe except Taurus for PvE content, but not for PvP. So guys, thanks a lot for watching. If you think the same as me, please leave it down below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. See ya.